everyone, it is time for the weekly planner page again, and today we have this really interesting spread from Lost Ocean, and I thought as we had a sea theme I would grab my Castle Art Seascape set to have a go at. Now these have most of the same colours as the 72 set. If you have the 120 set, the full set, you'll have all of these colours anyway, but I thought we would just have a little go at some of the elements. We won't be doing all of it, but I thought it would be fun. I'm going to zoom in a bit. It's quite nice, this one, because it's quite big. Sometimes Lost Ocean designs are quite small. I have a feeling this is a smallish design which has been made bigger for this purposes of this book, but I'm not entirely sure. But I rather like these two large elements, which is where I am going to start. This one looks almost like it's spherical to me, and I want to emphasize that in the way that I colour it. So I'm going to start with this Prussian Blue. Oh, I don't know if you're going to be able to see. You might be able to see that. And I'm going to use it on the outside. So all around the edge of the whatever this is. I don't know what these are. Are they coral? Are they anemones? I don't know. Anyway, this is where I struggle a little bit with Lost Ocean, because I don't know what these things are, and it makes me find them harder to colour. But I just decided I'm just going to go for it and have fun and use colour, all sorts of colour. So what I want to try and do with this is make it a little bit darker on the edge. So I'm going to put a few extra layers down there and then taper off towards the centre of the item, and then we'll use a different blue and sort of muddle it together, and hopefully we'll get something that looks a little bit more spherical and we'll have some fun. So normally I wouldn't do Under the Sea Things blue because of the background being blue, but I may or may not do a background on this page. I haven't really thought about it yet, and so I'm just going with it, because obviously the Seascape set, this blue is probably supposed to be for the sea, but we're using it for this. Now obviously these are small on this side, but I still want a little bit of room so I can get a little bit of colour in there so we can see it's darker. I'm just going to go back round and make those edges darker so that we can really see that that bit's darker than the rest. And I'm going to put a little bit of the darker colour around this central point here. And yes, I am pressing quite hard there, getting quite a deep colour, and I'm just going to fade that out a little bit. Just a tad, all the way around. Maybe a bit more on this side where it's larger, like that. There we go. We can always add more of this colour in a minute. I'm going to go for the next shade of blue, sort of down as it were, and we have the Ultramarine Light. I don't know how well you can see that. And I'm going to sort of take this as my next colour. It still isn't really light, so it's not going to be my final colour. So I've got a lighter blue in a minute. I'm just adding, as you can see, a little layer of this. The idea is to try and sort of fade it gently. It's a bit pointy there, isn't it? Let's go back onto the side of the pencil, get a lighter amount. And a little bit coming out of here as well. Again, a bit more this way, where these are longer. And then we're going to go with our palest blue in this set, which is the Cerulean Blue Middle. So if you don't have this specific set, even if you don't have any castle arts, you can just use 3 shades of blue. These are all quite different shades, so they don't necessarily sort of meld together brilliantly, but I think it'll be okay, because the heavier shade on the outside is more purpley, and we have quite a dark blue, and this is quite a mid blue, so we get quite a few different shades of blue. I think that's quite fun. Now I want to bring it all together in a minute. You can see it's still quite rough and ready. So before I think about adding more layers of colour, I'm actually going to use a blender. I happen to have a Derwent blender just on my right hand side. This is the Derwent. And I'm just going to go over it. Now with the Derwent blender, I find it sometimes makes things a little bit yellowy in colour. So if I just put it straight on a piece of paper, this paper's yellow anyway, onto a white piece of paper and just scribbled it, it might look a little bit yellow. But I'm not that worried here. If this blue goes yellowy, I don't mind. I didn't choose the blue specifically for the colour, more so as the look. So it's okay. You can see how this is helping to fill in the paper. So the white paper that we could see is disappearing, and it's helping to blend the colours together. You can achieve this by adding another layer of the blues that the same as we did already, and you get the same effect. Got a line across here, can you see that? It's a flaw in the paper. Happens in all colouring books that I've had from time to time. If you can just spend a little bit of time working the colour in, you can get rid of it, but you have to be careful, because if you want something very precise, it's a bit more difficult to get it looking right, because if you work the colour in too hard, it'll be too dark in that section. I'm not being too fussed with this. When I have finished doing this blending, I will put some more colour in, because for me it isn't quite there yet. So I'm going to go back in with the dark Prussian Blue. I'm actually going to sharpen it, because you get a bit more colour down if it's sharper. Excuse me. And I'm going to work back in that central area a little bit. Obviously we haven't done this bit yet. We'll get there in a minute. I'm going to put a little bit of this in there, around here. I want that to look like it's slightly sunken in, and we're going to go work on each of these little bits, just popping a little bit more colour on the edge of each one. And what you could do with this picture, because there are so many little elements, is you could stick to a very restricted colour palette. So you could use blue for everything if you wanted to, or you could use purple or pink or whatever you want to. But what I've done instead is I've got this pan of colours. I've only got 24. So although I can mix them together to make new colours, it does make it a little bit easier. Where did we start? There? I think so. Okay, and now back with the darker blue, which, remember, was the, if you can find it, Ultramarine Light. Quite hard to see. So my aim here is to just blend in and sort of lead up to that lighter blue without there being a really obvious line between the colours. This is almost like a sort of transitional colour between the very dark and the very light. I don't want to lose too much of the light, bright colour though, but I still want it to sort of blend nicely. There we go. So now I'm just going to go back in with the Cerulean Blue middle, was going to say light. I've got a couple of lights, but this is my only middle. And I'm going in harder now. You can see it doesn't look quite so bright, but it's blending together. I'm hoping that it still looks quite spherical, which it does. Actually, it's quite fluorescent in the camera lens compared to how it does for real. But the light is strange in here. I don't get any natural light at my desk at this time of year. To rely on my lamp. It's a very good lamp, but hopefully it means that you can see well when I'm demoing. Now, you just got to deal with this bit. I'm going to use this light one on this outside. Put down quite a heavy layer, and then the Ultramarine Light for the central. Just fill in that there. So there we go. There is that element, which I think is quite fun. Now you could do other elements using that same colour combination to sort of make them match. I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to use different colours. And what have we got? Let's have a little look. We've got quite a lot of more purples. Yeah. So I'm going to start with this. Is the very pretty Purple Lake Deep. I don't know if you can see that at all. And let's get that central so you can see. I'm going to start right off in the middle. Now, in the very middle of this, I don't know if you can see, there are tiny little white dots. I'm going to colour over those because they're very small. But what you could do is draw them back in with a pen at the end. I think trying to avoid colouring them was quite difficult. So I'm going to start off with quite a heavy layer in the centre and then just take that colour out all around these little, whatever they are, tendrils? I don't know. And I'm going to put a bit at the end of each one. And we're doing a similar thing to what we did with the sphere, as you can see. It's quite fun. So I hope you're all well. It's Monday, of course, when this video goes out, so I don't know if many of you are sort of heading off for work, or maybe having completed your first working day of the week. Obviously not everyone has the weekends off, but I hope you're sort of energised and ready to go. I don't always keep my working days to the weekdays, but often I do. Depends what I've got going on. The good thing with being freelance is that you can determine how much work you do and when, which is nice. But of course there is no sick pay, no holiday pay, no pension, and no guarantee of work at all. But it just has always worked very well for me with the family. And I've always been very fortunate. Now I'm just looking here, so we've definitely got one coming up here, but I can't see the end of it, but I'm just going to pop in a bit of colour there. Yeah, this is my very favourite Castle Arts colour. But now we've got the next colour in my tin is an Ultramarine Violet, but I think it's going to be darker than that. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the Mauve. It's a very pale colour, but and just take it right through the whole of there. So a bit darker at the centre and end, and then lighter in the middle part. Just needs a sharpen. It's a little bit blunt. There we go. Now it's slightly more bluey, I would say, than the other colour, but that's okay. And not really blending that well at the minute. But I'm just going to put on a light layer, I think, and then bring in the other one again and blend it. I think I'm just going to do it quite quickly and evenly. and we can just use the other purple to get the nice blend. I don't know what colour under the sea things really are. I sometimes look them up on my search engine to get an idea, and some of them are really bright, and I never know whether they're really that colour because it's so dark under the sea. Would they need to be bright? They might need to be bright to stand out, but then if there's no light, what's the point? So I don't really know, and I wonder if you can never tell if the colours have been altered. Okay, so we're back now with the Purple Lake Deep, and we are going to concentrate on each one individually, put a good layer in the middle, and then fade it out like that, and hopefully this will be our final layer. We might want to use the blender, but may not need it. Sometimes it's more necessary than others. Just depends. Personally, it depends how good a job I do, or how many layers of colour I've put on. Some pencils benefit a lot more from blending than others as well. And many people ask, what's the difference between a blender and a burnisher? Well, some blenders can burnish a little bit, so they can overlap. But what burnishing means is pushing the pencil down into the paper. Paper isn't completely flat. It has layers in it, and it's called like teeth. It's a tooth of paper, and if you feel different papers, they can feel rough or smooth. A really smooth one has very little tooth, and a rough one has lots. Imagine if you colour on a piece of sandpaper, your colour wouldn't really stay flat. You wouldn't see all of it. It would only draw on the sticky up bits of sandpaper, and the rest wouldn't have any colour on it. And all paper effectively does that, as it's not completely flat. And how smooth it is the tooth. The more tooth it has, the rougher it is. And a burnisher will push your colour down into the tooth of the paper, so it will make it more solid. So if you want to make something that's a really solid colour, so you want a solid background, or you want a beak or some claws or something like that, which would be really intense, then the burnisher is very useful. But a blender is different. A blender mixes colours together. Now, some brands of pencil naturally smush about on top of the paper. So something like a Prismacolor would move. So you can actually, it's quite fascinating. You put a couple of colours on the paper, you use a blender, and you can actually see that moving around on the surface of the paper. So that's quite interesting. Almost like it's a sort of wet paint type effect. Whereas some pencils, like a polychromos pencil, they don't move on the paper, but a blender might just help to mix the colours together a little bit better. So they can be more effective for pencils that smush more better. And whether they smush or not varies a lot between brands. It depends on the proportion of wax and oil in the pencil. So really, some people prefer ones that are more smushy, and some people prefer building up their own layers of colour. So it's all very, very personal. And if you're not sure about what to buy some Prismas, buy some polys, buy them open stock. You can buy them just one or two, and try them out and see which you think works best for you. It's quite interesting because I really didn't like Prismas very much, but I'm beginning to master them a little better now. So I'm still not likely to do videos using them because I've only got a handful. I've got greens. What I do is when I buy open stock pencils to try out, I always buy greens because I use lots of green. Johanna Basford's got lots of trees, and I like botanical colouring books anyway. So that's why I buy those. Okay, so that I'm happy with that. We can see quite a lot of white paper around there, but to me that gives that shape and shine, so I'm going to leave it. Before I finish though, you can those I think are quite fun. There are lots of other elements which look more floral, like they look like sea anemones and things like that. You could either continue with similar colours. I think I will add in some pink into this. I think it will be nice. I've got a few pink. I've got a Venetian red and a alizarin crimson, which I think I'll put in. I've got some orange as well and some brown, so I'm going to use a mix of colours in this. But I am just going to show you this pocket watch, because that's a little bit tricky to do if you want to make it look gold. With this set, I do have, I'm just looking, I do have enough colours that I can make a little gold colour. So we'll do that quickly and I'll just show you. You may have seen me do gold before. This is burnt umber. So I'm going to start, I did a pocket watch exactly like this the other day. I'm going to start by doing some burnt umber here, but I did it in silver. There and there. And what I have done is I've done quite a darker bit there and I faded it in each direction. I've done that on both sides. And I'm going to do a little bit in the middle here. I'm going to do quite a hard bit there and then just fade it in each direction like a little triangle. Yeah. And a little bit here and here and each side of here. I'm not going to do any on these bits yet. We've got very limited space on these, so I don't want to go in with a too dark a colour. So now we need a lighter brown. In this set we only have the sepia, which is quite reddish, but we're going to do it, and if it goes a bit red then it will just be a different shade. It might be bronze rather than gold. So I'm just going over, extending the colour that I've done already, so it gets quite simple now, like that, and extend there. Still not interested in doing that yet. I might put a tad on there like that. I don't think I did that bit. See, that bit there is quite small, but it's going to be dark because it's shaded. Now we have to jump to a yellow ochre. So we're moving on to yellows now. This is our next darkest colour. So I'm going to go over the top of what I've done already and extend that colour out like that, and the same on the rim on each side, in under here. And this I think looks quite gold, so I'm actually just going to go around the edge of each of these in this. It's only going to take one colour. Can you see how that's almost filling the whole circle? I'm trying to leave a white centre, but I don't think I'm succeeding. You can see it looks quite gold. There we go. And I'm going to use a final yellow. We have a cadmium yellow here. I'm just going to sharpen it. It's quite blunt. There we go. And we're just going to do a few final touches, so a little bit here. I'm actually going to cover everything with this, but I want to leave some white areas so that it looks like it's shiny. Let me see. A bit big. It's good to leave quite a big area and then look and decide how small to make it, but I'm going to leave it like that. So there are our three elements that I'm going to do from the page. I'm going to go away now and finish the page, and I'm only going to use this set of pencils. So if you want to sort of copy me or take some inspiration, and you'll know that all the colours have just come from this set. So I'm going to go away and have a play with that, and I will take a photo for the end so you can just have a look and see how it all comes out. So there we go. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a really lovely day. Please click like if you've enjoyed the video. It does make a difference, and it makes me smile. So thank you very much, and happy colouring.